Hi, I'm Aisha. I'm a software engineer in IT consulting, and this is Lepas Sekolah.
Aisha, at what age do you know that you wanted to become a software engineer?
I think it was 18 when I was 18 years old.
Aisha, you went to school in SMK Taman Utama. How was your high school years like? Were you always inclined towards the sciences or
I did not know specifically what I wanted to do, what kind of job do I want to have in the future, but I've always known that I wanted to be in STEM.
do you think that SPM adequately prepared you for what came after? So your pre-university, your university years, and your degree in computer science?
Definitely, because I took foundation in science. So all of the core subjects in foundation in science, most of them are similar to what we study in SPM, like biology, physics, chemistry. The only difference was that in pre-university, it was much more broader and more in-depth.
Aisha, when you were in your final years in secondary school, right, at the age of 16, 17, were you aware of all the education pathways that exist? And do you think your understanding was the understanding of an average student?
I would say I was aware of the education path available. I've always known I wanted to take 1 year pre-university program. Doesn't matter if it's matriculation or pre-university or A levels, but it has to be in STEM. It has to be science. So what I did was I just had to look up into the internet and I go university by university, and all of their brochures, all their programs, all of their offerings are pretty much available on the internet. So I just had to do a bit of research.
Now, looking back to your secondary school years, do you think that if there is a student nowadays who wants to pursue a degree in computer science, that there are subjects that they must take in secondary school?
I would say it does not matter. If you're in secondary school right now, it doesn't matter if you took like maybe arts or accounting or science. Doesn't matter if it's like pure science or the science without biology. You can still take computer science. You have to be good at math, not necessarily at math, because the math in computer science is very different from the math that we have for engineering students or pure science students. It's not like calculus or trying to calculate volume and trajectory. It's not like that. It's more to logic mathematics, discrete mathematics, computational mathematics. So if you're not good at math, it's okay, it's still fine. You just have to sort of perform well in the normal mathematics subject.
Actually, upon graduation from secondary school, obviously secondary school was in Taling Jaya, right?
Mhm.
Metropolitan. You decided that you were going to pursue your pre-university at University of Malaysia Sarawak. Why and what did you pursue?
Why and what did I pursue? Okay, so first of all, the campus is amazing. It's beautiful. I feel like it's one of the most beautiful campus we have in Malaysia. The facilities are really amazing. It's world class. There are teaching facilities, there are sport facilities. It's really good. And also, it's because the university is located in the city. There's so much to explore, so much to do. It's fun. And Sarawak has a lot of nature offerings. I remember there's one national park that I always go every semester. So yeah, so that was why I chose UNIMAS. It's a great university, great campus, great place to study.
Upon graduation, going to UNIMAS, what was the application process like? How do you get into University of Malaysia Sarawak?
To me, it was quite easy because we had UPU, and I've always known I wanted to do a 1 year program. I didn't want to do STPM or diploma. I just select all of the 1 year foundation in science programs that I see, and UNIMAS was one of it. So I would say it was a smooth process. I feel like if you know exactly what you want to do and the exact length of your program that you want to pursue, then it'll be easy.
How do you adjust to life in Sarawak, having grown up in Kuala Lumpur?
Life in Sarawak is not that different. It's a city. Unimas is located in Kuching. It's a vibrant city life. The people there are fun, amazing, respectful. Yeah, so I didn't have to adjust much.
Upon graduation from your pre-university, you obviously pursued a degree at UNIMAS as well in computer science. What was the biggest difference between your experience in foundation and your experience in your degree?
The difference was that the subjects that I take, it's no longer the general sciences subjects. There was no chemistry, there was no biology or physics, and the math is also became different. To me, it feels more purposeful and exciting because I'm learning something that would directly lead me towards a certain career, which is software engineering. So to me, it was very fun.
And for those who might not be too familiar, what are some of the basic things that every computer science student studies in university?
I would say 60% coding, 20% math, and 20% theories.
Of the three, which one was the most difficult?
Coding, of course. Okay, math is kind of difficult, but the portion is just very little. So I would say it's coding, because when it comes to exams, you have to memorize the exact syntaxes. For example, a Java programming language exam. The most basic syntax is public static void main bracket string argument. So that's like 6 syntaxes. And that is only the basic syntax. So imagine the amount of syntaxes that we have to memorize. So it's really, really time consuming. It takes a lot of sleepless nights. Another example is like exams for graphics programming. In order for you to draw one straight line, it requires 24 lines of code. So I also remember puking the morning right before my exams, because I was just memorizing a lot of programming syntaxes. Because if you get one keyword wrong, or you miss a semicolon, or you miss a curly braces, then you won't get any marks. So I guess that was the most difficult part. It was coding. Aside from exams, it was the coding projects. So coding project, it takes insane amount of time. We didn't have assisted AI back then, so everything has to be done manually. If your code doesn't work, you have to debug line by line. If your algorithm doesn't work, you have to keep switching plans, and you have to build lots of resilience, and you have to stay up all night, do it with your friends until it actually works. Because if your code doesn't work, then work is not delivered.
And you mentioned obviously examinations and you mentioned projects, right? Can you recall what was the assessment split like? Was there coursework, group projects, examinations?
Okay, so the assessment split was 60% coursework projects. Coursework projects are like building softwares. Like we'll build games, we build management systems, we build load balancers, we build like operating systems. So that was 60%. 10 to 15% are written assignments like research, theoretical assignments. 30 to 35% are exams.
Do you find it manageable? Were there like moments you were like, oh, I don't think I can go through this?
I would say it was bearable, it was manageable, but I remember being very, very sleep deprived and also socially deprived, because I remember there was a lot of sleepless nights. I remember saying no to my friends, saying no to going out. There were countless times where I had to disappoint a lot of people because I had to stay up all night. I had to be with my group mates and finish the work, study for exams. It was really, really tough, very, very time consuming. You need to put in a lot of hours into excelling in your exams and also getting your coursework done.
Now, looking back, do you have any group projects? And if you had, was it difficult managing other people or was it quite easy for you?
It depends on the people that you work with. But for me, fortunately, the people that I work with during my group projects, they're very passionate about what they do. They're really good at coding. So to me, it was an advantage, because in the real world, in real world applications, when an app is being built, it's not built by just one person, it's built by many people. So it's not just one person making changes to the code base. It's not just one person editing the files of code. There's this thing called version control, which is a practice that we do to build real world applications. So being in group projects in university helped us to really experience how do we manually control the versions. So for example, if there are 5 programmers trying to commit changes and push changes to the same code base, there is a sort of precedence, or what goes in first, and what if the same person is trying to edit the same file. So to experience that as a student is an advantage. And second thing is that when we're building real world applications in industries at work, there's this thing called peer review, where we look at each other's code and we critique it. We look at the approach and we figure out like, hey, there's a better way to do this. There's a more scalable, more maintainable approach to do this. And vice versa. Our code also gets reviewed and gets critiqued. To be able to experience that when you study is such an advantage when you go to work later. You learn manual version control. You also learn through other people's code, and other people learn through your code. And to me, group projects is such an advantage, and I'm happy to be able to experience that in uni.
How was campus life?
So this is my dorm. It's really nice, and this is the campus. As you can see, the sunsets are really beautiful, and the campus is really beautiful. All of the buildings, all of the facilities, and all of the faculties are surrounded by a really beautiful lake, where there's a bridge in the middle, and then this is the sports facility. As you can see, it's really nice. It's a video of me swimming during sunset.
Okay,
Cantik
nice.
gila. Yeah, I'll show
Beautiful.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you should show that. So
What would you say is the biggest misconception people have about a computer science degree and of computer science students?
one of the biggest misconceptions about computer science is that it takes a genius to code. To me, it doesn't. You just have to be very, very creative and resilient. For example, if you're trying to understand an algorithm, it's not enough for you to just try out those programming tutorials and write those code and see what happens. You have to know what happens under the hood. So for example, a sorting algorithm that people use for TikTok FYP, right? There is a certain code for it. In order for you to understand it and be really good at it, to have a strong understanding of it, you have to be a bit of a creative where maybe you can like write down and visualize yourself and draw what happens after each loop of the sorting algorithm. So you have to be very creative in terms of your approach to understanding things. And then also you have to be very resilient because in coding there are always errors, there's always issues, things don't work. So you have to be very, very resilient, and you have to keep trying. If plan A doesn't work out, plan B, plan C, you have to just keep trying. So to me, it's not about being a genius, it's about being very creative, hardworking, and also resilient. And then another thing is that computer science is not just about coding, it's about problem solving in a way that in the real world later, after you graduate, in the workplace, there will always have a huge complex problem. It's the ability to understand the complex issue, the complex problem, and break it down into smaller, more manageable problems and work your solution from there. I think that is the biggest skill, most important skill for a computer science student must have. Okay, apart from that, it's also system designing, and also some people call it software architecture. It's about leveraging all the tools that we already have, all the technologies that we already have in the market, and how do we design a system in a way that it is very maintainable, it is scalable, it fits a budget. How do we design a system in a way that how do we manage trade-offs, what do we sacrifice, things like that.
Aisha, now speaking about your internships, you were a data developer at CIMB as an intern. First of all, how was your internship experience? And second, how important is it to do an internship while you were studying as a computer science student?
So my internship program, I was an SQL developer. I had to write a lot of SQL queries for an investment bank where all of their trade data are being processed and presented in a certain way. So I had to develop the SQL queries to sort of like transform data for them for their day-to-day work. So that was my internship experience. It's a very low level job, but it was not like a job where I work in a startup and I had the experience of making a full stack application. But it doesn't matter really, because what matters is what you already know. Even though I was just a programmer that writes SQL queries for internship, to me, I'm more than that. I know how to make web apps, I know how to make a bunch of other things. So I would say one of the advice is that don't stress too much about where you intern or where you start, because that's not where you're going to end up. And then how important is it is the second question.
Yeah.
Okay, I would say it's important because software engineering specifically, you need a lot of industrial experience. You need to experience how software is being delivered. You need to experience how a software requirement is being gathered, is being discussed, and triaging all of those requirements to developers. You need to know how to realistically manage your resources, manage your software engineers. You need to know how all the processes that takes from gathering requirements to delivering working software to the users. To me, internship is not just about doing. You have to observe how a working software is being delivered. You need to, observe and look at how people work, the life cycle of delivering a software from the start to the end. It's not just about completing your task. It's not just about gaining knowledge. It's about seeing how things work, seeing how people work.
Aisha, in your opinion, what are some qualities that you believe interns should have for them to succeed?
So for me, a computer science student, you need to possess strong technical skills, and I would say HTML, CSS, JavaScript for web app development. You have to be very proficient in SQL, and then master at least one back-end programming language. It can be Java, it can be Python, it can be C++, it can be anything. When you are doing your internship program, gain as much knowledge and experience as you can, and also look at how things are being done, build as much network as you can, learn about other people's career, learn about what they do to be who they are right now.
When it came to actually finding a job in computer science, what was your biggest priorities? Was it salary? Was it where you were working? Was it work culture? Was it the flexibility? What was going through your mind?
I have my list of priorities that I need to make sure the company has to offer. So number one, of course, is the salary. They need to give a competitive package. Second is their culture. So they need to have really good work-life balance and also flexibility. Let's say, flexibility to work from home or work remotely. And then companies that support upskilling. So for example, giving their employees the ability to reserve their time to upskill in terms of learning a new technology framework, learning a new programming language, learning any new tools that is in the tech market. So that is also one of the priorities that I look at when I job hunt. The last one is the most important one. It's companies that knows how to manage their resources realistically. So I think this is one of the reasons why I've always switched between companies, because I notice there are a lot of companies who do not know how to manage their resources realistically. So, for example, if a company wants to develop a new software, they would hire, let's say, two back-end developers, two front-end developers, one manual tester, one automation tester, probably two project managers. I think that's sort of like a good resource allocation and resource planning. But a not so good example would be the company would sort of hire five full stack developer who knows how to test, who knows how to do back end, who knows how to do front end, who knows how to do manage cloud resources, and probably just like one project manager. So that is a bad example of resource allocation. You need to know the key people who can get the work done specifically. You can't just expect a person to know every single thing. I think it's not realistic. That will cause a lot of burnout.
Aisha, you obviously mentioned the reason why you moved around, right?
Yeah.
It's because of the lack of being able to manage resources well. But what do you think is the biggest benefit of moving around in your early career and finding new jobs and working with different companies?
Okay, I think one of the early benefits is that the moment you've really advanced in your career, it's already quite hard to move around, because by that time you're probably already specialized in a very niche area and you're already very highly paid. So it's hard to move around. So for me, I think if you've just graduated or you're early in your career, move as much as you can, because you get to experience how things are being done differently in different companies. And also it's much easier to move around when you're early in your career, because you're a person who knows everything. You just graduated, so you know math, you know AI, you know back end development, you know databases. All of the knowledge is still fresh in you. You are sort of more qualified to work in many different areas. But the moment you're already mature in your career, let's say you're already 5 years or 6 years into your career, you're already very specialized. You're already very niched. So it's gonna be a bit hard for you to move around. So I would say if you're early in your career, move as much as you can and experience as much as you can.
Sure, one thing that people always say when you move around at the early stages of a career, right, is that it always comes with a pay hike. Is that true in your experience?
Yes, it is true. I think the market is very competitive.
Yeah.
There are a lot of international software companies who comes to Malaysia and set up their development office here in Malaysia. Their main HQ may be in their own country, but they want to start developers office in Malaysia because our workforce is much cheaper compared to them, and also our location is strategic. So let's say if their HQ is in the UK but their clients are in Australia or Hong Kong, having a team in Malaysia makes it easy for them as well. The opportunity is very wide, but the supply is very low, so it's very competitive. So that's why I think it's important for you to make use of it. If you have the skill, if you know how to code, if you know how to make apps, make software, make use of it.
When every time that you move jobs, right, have you ever had to negotiate your salary? And if you had to, what are your tips for people who are going to do so?
My tip is something that I had to learn the hard way. Don't try to be the kind of person who wants to be good at everything. Don't try to be a person who comes into an interview and say, I'm good at front end, I'm good at back end, I can do everything. I know Java, I know C Sharp, I know Python, I know big data, I know cloud computing, I know everything. Don't try to be that, because that is not realistic. All of the software engineers I know, they can do everything, but most of them, the successful ones, good at one thing, they specialize in one thing. So if you're early in your career, you just graduated, you need to know everything. You need to be able to have a fundamental knowledge of every single aspect in computer science, but you need to be really good at one thing that companies would pay you a lot of money because you are very, very knowledgeable in that aspect. For example, you're a computer science student, you know how to make apps, but you're very knowledgeable in cybersecurity, or you're very knowledgeable in cloud computing, you're very knowledgeable in building APIs. Be really good at one thing, specialize in one thing. That way, they know that you are very valuable, you're very marketable, and that way you can negotiate your salary better.
And you mentioned earlier front end, back end, full stack developer. What are the differences between all these three?
Okay, so a full stack developer is not just front end and back end. It's front end, back end, managing databases, doing cloud computing, authentication and security. It's basically knowing how to use all of the tools in order to build an application from the topmost layer to the bottommost layer. All of the software engineers, all of them are full stack developers actually, but they are usually heavier on either side, front end or back end. I think I explained full stack already, but
Yeah.
front end, okay, I'll give an example. The Instagram app,
Yeah.
all of the grids, all of the buttons, the size of your profile picture. So anything that you see on the app that is built by code, and those code are built by front-end developers. It's not just how pretty it is, but also the interactions. Like, for example, if you say happy birthday in Instagram message, there's like fireworks and stuff. Yeah, things like that is also built by code, and which are written by front-end developers. So for back-end developers, if you post a picture on Instagram, back-end developers take all of this input from the users, from the front end, and they process it in a way that, okay, where does this picture go? And they process the data in a way that, okay, this picture has its own metadata, like the username, the comments, the tags, the location, the music. So what they do is they process this data, and they write all of this code where the data is going to be stored and for how long. So whatever that happens in the background, those code are written by back-end developers.
Of the three, is there one that is considered to be the most glamorous?
I think they're all equal. I would say most of them like to do back-end because I would say that's sort of the easiest, I think.
And in terms of like demand from companies, right?
Demand.
Demand from companies or the industry, which one is considered to be the most in demand?
It depends actually. If you're talking about trends, AI of course, and if you're talking about trends in programming languages, 66% of the programmers worldwide are codes in JavaScript. In terms of backend, .NET and Java is one of the biggest boys in the market. Cloud computing is also big. It is very, very in demand. And if you specialize in that, you're on a good trajectory. Cybersecurity and network. Cybersecurity and network is something that is very, very essential in any tech company that you go, especially AI.
So you are a software engineer and IT consultant firm. Give us a picture, like what is your day-to-day job like?
Okay, it looks like this. In the morning, there will be daily stand-ups where everyone in the internal team, there'll be developers, testers, probably some business analysts and a project manager. We would sit together and update everyone what we did the previous day and what we're going to do today, and if there's any issues or blockers. So it's more like a very informal, short catch-up. And then after that, we would focus on completing our tasks. So our tasks are usually building features, fixing bugs, and configuration setups. So it's usually these three. It's usually done individually. So we would just like sit at a computer and just code. Sometimes we do pair programming. So we would have a meet with our peers and we would, code together. At random times of the day, we would have meetings with stakeholders, with our users, people who are not in our internal team to discuss feature plannings and whatnot. And sometimes we would have short discussions with our internal team. For example, a tester would have a discussion with you to discuss on a bug, and then you have to go fix it. It's a mix of collaboration and also working by yourself.
What are the realities of working as a software engineer?
It really, really depends on the company that you work at and the culture. I used to work for an investment bank. The software that they use to perform their day-to-day task, which is trading, is very time critical. Market opens at 8 and closes at 5. So there is a lot of computing jobs that needs to be done by 8, die. So the working hours are very crazy. It's very hectic. When it comes to deploying a feature into the trading software, you have to sort of like stay up late at night. You get on calls. If the midnight computing jobs fail, the operator will call you and say like, can you please debug? You have to wake up from your bed and you have to debug on the spot because market opens at 8 and you have no choice but to fix the bug. So it depends on the company. If you're working on a time critical software, then the hours would be very crazy. But right now, I'm working for an IT consulting company, and the working hours are very flexible because the company culture really practices good work life balance, where if you already finish your task for the day, you can just call it a day. And then I'm also not working on a time critical application. I'm usually mostly working on management systems and enterprise software. It really depends on the kind of company that you work at. So I guess my advice is that if you really want to have a good work life balance, the moment you feel like you are too stressed, you have to work crazy hours, I suggest you to scout for better opportunities because work life balance is really important for your life. Yeah.
What's the realistic salary that a fresh graduate in computer science can expect from the industry?
When it comes to local GLC companies, during my time, I'm not sure about now, it would be around 3,000 to 4,000 ringgit. But if it's an international MNC companies, during my time it was 5,000 to 6,000 ringgit. But I also see a lot of instances where they get 6 to 7,000 ringgit as well. The pay is not that good in the beginning, but the moment you spend a few years specializing at one niche tech area, for example, cloud computing or cybersecurity or front end or back end, companies will pay you really well. Don't stress too much about where you start or how much you're getting paid because you are not your job, you are not the salary that you get paid, you are not the programming language that you work with, you are literally everything you know, the knowledge you possess, the skills you have, the projects that you build. So don't stress too much about where you start and how much you're getting, but focus on the long run in terms of 2 to 3 years after you start.
What's one lesson that you've learned in your career so far?
Is something that I talked about just now. So when I graduated, I tried to be good at everything. I want to be good at front end, back end, databases. I want to be good at cloud computing. I wanted to be good at UI UX design. I wanted to be everything. But it only caused me burnout and also a time where I had to think, what am I really good at? So I think upon graduation, I guess try to decide in which niche area in tech that you want to be really good at, that you want to specialize in, so that later on in your career, you know what sort of value specifically that you bring that companies would want to work with you and want to pay you.
Can you describe your journey Lepas Sekolah in 3 words?
I would say tough, challenging, and also life changing. I'm Aisha, and this is my journey Lepas Sekolah.